Wanted to mention, going to be another hot one today, and if it's going to be hot out and you have a lot of windows in your home or your office, when we had the old cab forward design that came out with automobiles back in the early to mid 1990s, you started seeing a lot of that heat intensify. But just the other day, I went to the grocery store. I had to run in for just a minute. I went in to pick up actually some spring water, and I came out and I had all the windows closed. And the amazing thing is how hot it suddenly was in the Jeep when I got back in because I had not opened the sunroof, just because of that convection from the heat. So we recommend you give the good folks at Tint Lady a call, and that will help, of course, if they come out, do a free estimate. You can actually start saving money with these tints because it's going to reduce the heat that comes through the windows by up to 72%. And that means you'll save on air conditioning bills, which is a great thing. You'll also manage to keep the fading of your furniture and your carpets and your drapes because those get bleached out by the UV rays in the sun. And so we recommend you give them a telephone call at 736-8469, or you can go to the website, tintladyidaho.com. Locally owned and operated, 20 years experience plus in the business. 1887 Highland Avenue East in Twin Falls, open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But do remember they travel. Saturday by appointment only, closed on Sundays. And don't squint, get tint. Donald Trump, I was going to lead with this in the beginning of the show today, but we had some breaking news coming from elsewhere in the country. Donald Trump is again, how shall we put it, being politically incorrect. Do you know that he threw a reporter out of a news conference yesterday? Jorge Ramos, who reports not only for Univision, but also for MSDNC and NBC, all owned by the same parent company, got under Trump's skin during the course of a news conference yesterday. And Trump simply, he was interrupting. Trump had called on another reporter, and Ramos started interrupting. And now he claims it's my job and this is what I do. But Trump did not take it well, had one of his bodyguards escort Ramos screaming from the room, screaming, keep your hands off me. I'm allowed to ask. It's my right to ask questions. And, of course, interrupting, on the other hand, is probably not considered very polite. But if you didn't have a chance to hear it, this is a little long. Finally, Ramos came back into the room and had a brief Q&A with the Donald. And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you because I think it's absolutely amazing. And it's just listen to how Trump responds to some of the questions that this jerk is asking.
Yes. Good. Absolutely. Good. Absolutely. Good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So here's the problem with your immigration plan. It's full of empty promises.
Okay.
You cannot deport 11 million undocumented immigrants. You cannot deny citizenship to the children in this country. You cannot build a 19...
Why do you say that?
You cannot do that.
Well, a lot of people think, excuse me.
You have to change the Constitution, Mr. Trump.
A lot of people, but a lot of people think that's not right, that an act of Congress can do it. Now, it's probably going to have to be tested in courts, but a lot of people think that if you come and you're on the other side of the border, I'm not talking about Mexico, somebody on the other side of the border, a woman is getting ready to have a baby, she crosses the border for one day, has the baby, all of a sudden, for the next 80 years, hopefully longer, but for the next 80 years, we have to take care of the people. I don't think this, no, I don't think so. Excuse me, some of the greatest legal scholars, and I know some of the television scholars agree with you, but some of the great legal scholars agree that that's not true. That if you come across, excuse me, just 1 second.
You're not answering, Mr. Trump.
No, I am answering. If you come across for one day, and you have a baby, now the baby is going to be an American citizen. There are great legal scholars, the top, that say that's absolutely wrong. It's going to be tested.
Anyway,
okay?
So the question is, how are you going to build a 1,900 miles wall?
Very easy. I'm a builder. That's easy. I build buildings that are 94. Can I tell you what's more complicated? What's more complicated is building a building that's 95 stories tall.
But
okay?
It's unnecessary, it's a waste of time and money.
You think so, really? I don't think so. A lot of people don't think so.
Almost 40% of immigrants come by plane. They simply would say the visa, so you would
I don't believe that.
Time and money.
Okay, you're right. I don't believe it. And the drugs come, I see them cry, they have pictures, they have everything crawling over the fences, which are, by the way, this high. I mean, you have fences that are...
I'm going to drop that off there because we're coming up on a break shortly. But he's pointing out how small the fences are, and he said, and the border agents can't do their jobs. People hop the fence and just, was it Ramos? I believe it might have been, it was Ramos or one of his colleagues who was standing next to the border a few weeks ago, and 3 people ran across while he was there. And so it was. Oh, that was Jose Diaz-Balart, but they work for the same network. It's coming up on 8:30. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Who was it the other day? We keep hearing, well, we can't build the wall. We can't deport these people. We can't do this. We just couldn't possibly do it. That's a real can-do attitude, isn't it? Remember Franklin Roosevelt came out and said, by the end of the war, we will be building. And he gave a number of ships we would build, and everyone said, he's daft. But then we exceeded those goals. I mean, we said, well, we're going to do it. The number's high. Let's do it. And we not only did it, we did it better. Today in politics, we say, we can't do it. I don't have the I'll tell you what a change in the American attitude over the course of a few generations. 9:30, Bill Colley with you on Top Story. 72. Hope you can stick around. I've got more on this story coming up in just a moment. Some of the reaction from some of the wimps in the Republican primary system. There is an update about the shooting that took place in Virginia. The shooter, apparently a disgruntled TV station employee. So again, it likely comes down to jealousy or anger. He didn't get the job he wanted. Someone else got it. It's just, you ask yourself, how come they can't screen people like that out at the personnel department? Because obviously there might be some signs. 9:34, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. 72, Governor Terry McAuliffe of Virginia was just on television speaking about this a short while ago. I never saw him look so serious. A small world story. When I was married the first time around, my decision was to continue to be married. It was somebody else's not to, but my wife's sister married Terry McAuliffe's first cousin. Now, this goes back 20, 25 years ago. And he was just kind of a nobody at the time. And I used to see him around at various family events. But he was one of those guys, when he would speak to you, he'd have this painted-on smile. It was always as if he thought he was putting something over on you, and you knew better. Of course, naturally, he gravitated into fundraising for the Clinton family, and then made his bones there and eventually squeaked by in an election for governor in Virginia because the media essentially carried him across the finish line. They didn't like his opponent, the Republican in the race, who had challenged Obamacare in court. 9:35, Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning. Got a few minutes left in the program today, and I was sharing with you that conversation between Donald Trump and a reporter after he'd thrown the reporter out of a news conference yesterday for interrupting other reporters, and then the guy was allowed back in, and then they had a Q&A, and they keep trying to say to Trump, well, don't you think it's wrong, or don't you think it's mean? And Trump keeps coming back with answers that seem completely logical. And that's got to frustrate these people to absolutely no end. Well, the New York Times has decided to take a shot at both Donald Trump and Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush, by the way, he apologized the other day. I don't think I was being racist. I wasn't mentioning, when I said anchor babies, I was talking about Chinese. All right, whatever. Mr. Bush just disqualified himself for sure. Here's Eddie Scarry writing. That's the name. Eddie Scarry writing at the Washington Examiner. The New York Times is pushing back against Republican presidential candidates Donald Trump and Jeb Bush for employing the phrase, quote, anchor babies, unquote. What exactly would you call them? It's like dropping anchor and then you get to stay here. As Trump said, what if you cross the border the day you're pregnant, you're going to deliver, and you deliver on this side, and then suddenly, boom, your baby's an American citizen. But, of course, according to Lefty, we can't do that. We need to destroy the borders and have the country run by the United Nations, and then everybody can have each to his own needs, and you can have 2 servings of meat per week, and then you'll eat a lot of lentils, and you'll have no alcohol, and everybody will be equal. Yeah, and if you don't agree with that, Che Guevara will take you down to the sports complex and shoot you to death. So, according to the New York Times, saying anchor babies is racist. The Times itself, the writer says, has reported on underground businesses that bring pregnant Chinese women to the U.S. on visas, so the women can give birth to their children on American soil, granting them citizenship. Once the child reaches 21, he or she can then help his or her parents enter the U.S. legally. The Times used the term, quote, maternity tourism, unquote, to describe this practice and question the racial motives of Trump and Bush. Maternity tourism. Are you people on the left? I mean, have you smoked so much marijuana and shot up so much heroin and ingested so much LSD that you can no longer think straight? Holy cow. I mean, you want to talk about abject idiocy. And this is how the American left wants to run the country. Maternity tourism. All right. Okie dokie. I'm not sure I buy that. Frank Luntz, who's a pollster, was talking last night with Sean Hannity, and he says that Trump has surprised him and a lot of other people and still continues to do so. Take a listen for a moment.
What Trump has done over the last 3 weeks is that he has taken his media appearances, taken that language of political correctness, and used it as a weapon to challenge those who are opposed to him, and you have about 25 up to 30% of the Republican vote and some Democrats who are just fed up with the way Washington works, fed up with Wall Street, fed up with the media, fed up with the elites, and that's why he's doing so well right now.
You said in this New Jersey Star-Ledger, the commission poll of yours, that he is virtually invulnerable to any attack by any 2016 candidate, and that it's totally conceivable that Trump will become the Republican Party's nominee for president. What changed so dramatically?
He's been able to monopolize even a conversation like this. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Trump voters that will watch this interview right now, either in this airing or the one that comes on later. And they will say, Sean, that they're tired of politicians who speak in sound bites. They're tired of all these focus group slogans. They want someone who says what they mean, means what they say.
Luntz appearing last night on Sean Hannity's program on Fox News Channel. And he also said that during one of the recent, that they had a focus group who panned him a few weeks ago. But what's happened since then, they also had a focus group watching him speak about how we need to do more for the nation's returning veterans. And he said Trump was the first time in Frank Luntz's polling history that Trump was the first guy to ever score a 100 with a focus group, a perfect score, when he talked about that issue. So something's afoot here that we've never seen the likes of before in American politics. 20 minutes from 10 o'clock, 72. More on this topic coming up in just a moment. More breaking news out of Virginia following that shooting, the killing, deliberate killing of two television news reporters. A photographer and a reporter were both shot dead at a water park while they were doing a live report this morning. According to the Associated Press, the man that police are looking for is a 41-year-old. His name is Vester Lee Flanagan. He had a different name on television. But he's bounced around television in North Carolina and Virginia. Had been a co-worker of the two people that he is alleged to have shot and killed. And one of his claims was that the young woman that was shot dead while she was reporting, 24 years old, he claims she had made racist remarks to him. He is a person of color. According to the television station's general manager, no one was ever able to verify that. In fact, no one else on staff could verify that, which may well mean that this fellow, maybe she got an assignment, a position at work that he wanted and he didn't get. But you know what? You wonder if he wasn't competent enough to get the job or the position that he wanted within the station. Was he just an affirmative action hire in the first place? I mean, was he there on a set aside? Because when I worked in television, I was a television news director at two different stations. We had a rule with one of the companies that I worked with, and it was unspoken. But I was told if someone quit and they had been Asian, I was told you got to hire another Asian. If someone quit and they were Latino, I was told you have to hire another Latino. If someone quit and they were... So the joke around town would be among staff and reporters at these TV stations, well, that's the black position, or that's the Asian position, or that's the Latin position. And I used to try to push back, and I used to try and say, well, why don't I hire the best people available? Oh, no, we gotta have it look like a cross-section of the community. Yeah, but what if they can't report? No, we've got to have it look like a cross-section of the community. As it turned out, I had the best, without even trying, minority hiring record in all of the Ackerley Company at the time. Because I saw a reporter, she had 4 languages she could speak. So I hired her because I thought, well, hey, if she can learn 4 languages. I hired another fellow who'd been in the Air Force and the Navy over the course of 21 years. And I figured if he could go through all of that, then I want him on staff too. I hired a fellow who'd been flying Harrier jets in the Marine Corps because I thought, hey, if you can do that, being a reporter is kind of a simple thing to do. You can cinch that. But I ended up with a real mosaic unplanned in my newsroom. I didn't follow the company unspoken guidelines, and then the company came and they said to me at some meeting one time, they said, "We want you to put together a list of all of the minorities in the newsroom." Well, why? Well, and just so we can show it to the government. Well, who in the government cares? So I said, well, so can I go around and ask people? Because I had people on staff. I didn't know where they were from, or where their parents were from or their ancestors were from. And I said, so can I go ask them? No, you can't ask them. I said, well, then what do you want me to do? Well, we want you to just write down, the various demographics of who people are in the newsroom. Who's the minorities, what type of minority they are. I said, but I can't ask them. No, you can't ask them. So how am I supposed to do this? Well, you just take a notepad, walk through the newsroom, and write it down. But don't tell anyone what you're doing, and don't ask them. Yeah, but it's a fiction then, because if I can, I had a young man, I learned it years later that his parents came from Suriname. I didn't know where that was. I mean, at the time, it was South America. But you realize, I never walked around and said, hey, Steve, where's your family from? It just never came up. I mean, good, hardworking reporter, and we moved him up very quickly in the management ranks because he was just so astute on the job. But I'm telling you, you were effectively told to just write down a lie so you could give it to the government. And unfortunately, if you're running a TV station like that, and you're trying to hire on a guest to try and fill all of these roles, then sometimes you're going to potentially hire a bad apple. So again, it's political correctness that is driving this. And now 2 people are dead because the TV station wanted to be politically correct. It's asinine. And yet we still have people around the country in academia and in government and in media saying, well, then we need to do this because... No, if your wife is having a baby and she's in labor and you're driving down the highway and you come up to an intersection and you see a sign and it says, turn left a mile away is a hospital where we hire the best doctors available. And then there's a sign that says, turn right and there's a hospital a mile away where we hire according to affirmative action. Which one are you going to take your pregnant wife to? That's a pretty simple answer, isn't it? Are you going to be accused, though, of being racist if you go to the hospital that's hired the best doctors versus the one that practices affirmative action? Give me a break. 10 minutes now away from 10 o'clock, and we've got Mike Gallagher coming up in just a moment. Just a few more minutes left in the program. Bill Colley with you this Wednesday morning. Hey, quick note. We have some folks coming by from the Twin Falls County Fair tomorrow just after 9 o'clock news, and we're going to get a preview of the fair here on air and talk some in-depth about that. I've got to get out there myself next week just to walk around and eat the funnel cakes and do all of those things I'm not supposed to do. It's only once a year, so we'll have them in the studio with us. Also, we'll get an update, too, from, I believe, Twin Falls County Sheriff's Department just after 8:30 tomorrow morning. In the meantime, Gallagher is brought to you exclusively by the financial advisors at Waddell & Reed in Twin Falls, 736-6563. Just a quick update coming out of Virginia. The latest is that the alleged killer has now turned the gun on himself and blown his own brains out and saved the state a great deal of expense when it comes to prosecution and then housing him in prison. 9:54, Bill Colley with you on top. And, of course, years of appeals and the like. Bill Colley with you on Top Story 73. We are wrapping up today's edition of the show. And again, I attribute, as I said earlier, I think this all ties in with political correctness. And you hired someone who you probably should not have hired, who then immediately started making outlandish claims. And then when he didn't get a resolution on those claims, just decides to start shooting innocent people. You're on the air with Bill Colley on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. Good morning. No, I think our caller has jumped ship. We'll try another caller. You're on the air, and you're on Top Story.
Good morning, Bill. This kind of stuff has happened in my own house. My wife took a job as a nurse in a small company that catered to the migrant people. And the person above her that was supposed to put things together quit. She ended up doing it all for the pay that she was given to begin with. Got the place up and going, had good standings and records and everything else. They hired a lot of Latino people, and then hired a manager above her that was Latino, and she made her life a living hell till she quit because she wanted her friends to work there.
It was my experience when I was, it's not so bad in radio, but when I was in television, you had a lot of people who were hired to fill those slots just for affirmative action reasons, and they got big heads thinking that they must be really good. And I never did it, but I always wanted to go out and tell them, no, you're here basically for one reason. You checked off a box.
Yeah, they made her life hard because what they did was anytime she was around, they'd all speak in Spanish. They knew she couldn't understand Spanish. And they did it on purpose just to make her feel uncomfortable.
Sure.
And she left. And as true to form, the girl hired her friend. So I don't agree with this whole thing that things have got to be a certain way. You need to hire somebody that's good for the job. Obviously, my wife was good enough for the job to get the place up and going and give them the records and reports they had. But once they had that, they didn't care.
How do you lose a good worker? You do that.
Right. It's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous, and the whole thing about anchor babies and everything is getting good publicity due to Trumpster, and good for him.
Hey, thank you much for the telephone call. I've got to say this about Trump's situation. I didn't get to it today, but Chris Christie, what a wimp. A lot of bluster, but Chris Christie was on the Kelley File last night on Fox. And, it just, these politicians don't get it. You just heard Mike Gallagher talking about it. They don't get it. They just keep thinking, well, we'll go right back and we'll repeat the same bromides we always repeat. We'll blame the other party, and everyone will go, wow, and here's a picture of Ronald Reagan. I liked Ronald Reagan too, so you should vote for me. That's how Republican Party politics works anymore. And over in the Democrat Party, they're all ready for their Geritol. But the fact of the matter is, the public is fed up with all of this baloney. Glad I said baloney, because I turned down the delay here for a minute near the end of the show. I'm just telling you, those politicians and those people, and even journalists like this fellow yesterday trying to badger Trump while he was taking questions from other people, they think somehow the public's going, no, you tell Donald, you tell him. No, they're not. They think you're a jerk. And the poll numbers are showing it, and those poll numbers are growing. I think maybe it's time that we're giving them the paddling they've needed for about 50 years. Rush Limbaugh's program and whatever the host du jour is coming up next, right after 10 o'clock news from the Fox Radio Network, 9:59, 74. Hey, have a great day.